call for today's session. Yeah, hi, good afternoon, Israel. Yeah, so this session is designed for us to not only understand that cyber attacks are happening every day, right? But who attackers are targeting. We want to know who they are targeting, why they're being targeted, and the security gaps that are being exploited today. Today, I can promise you that it's going to be inciting. We have world-class speakers here. We have Gbolabo Awelewa and we have Confidence Staveley here with us. They're going to be unpacking a lot of info that I'm sure we'll find very, very exciting, very interesting for the different types of enterprises and organizations that are represented here today. I'll be introducing them properly in a moment, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of value from the sessions that we're going to be having with each of them. And I also want to encourage you that don't drop off at any point in time, because there's so much that we put together for today, and I want you to stay till the end. Every minute of it will be worth your time. We don't want today's session to be only about insights, and just sharing data and pushing out stuff today. But at the end of the presentations, we're going to have breakout sessions. At the breakout sessions, we would have the opportunity to engage more deeply, where you can also ask more questions, get more insights, and even get an assessment of your organization today. And just for you to have a lot more clarity as to where exactly you are, what your position is in terms of security, in terms of whether you're the ones that they're attacking or not, or targeting or not, so you'd have that opportunity to do that today. So we have an insightful session ahead of us, and I encourage you to engage, to ask your questions, and make the most of the conversations. And what you can do is, as the speakers are on taking us through their presentations, you can drop your questions on the chat box. We have members of our team there that will be able to respond right on the spot. And after each session, you would also have an opportunity to speak directly with Confidence and also speak directly with Gbolabo. So it's going to be very interactive, and I'm confident that you guys are going to have a great time with us today. So once again, welcome, 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 and thank you for joining us today. So I'm going to give you a very brief introduction of esentry, who we are. We're an MSSP that deliver end-to-end cybersecurity solutions. We say intelligence-led cybersecurity solutions, and we cater to different categories of organizations: small scale organizations, medium scale organizations, and of course, the large scale enterprises and startups. We function as your dedicated security partner, delivering enterprise grade protection without the complexity of building and managing an in-house security function. So if you're here today, you don't even know what cybersecurity is about, you have no clue, you don't understand whether you're safe or not, you're in the right place. All of those questions will be answered today. So we're going right into it, because we want to make sure every minute is well spent. I'm going to be introducing our first speaker today, someone that I'm very, very, very excited to have on board. Someone that a lot of us always look forward to her speaking engagement, or look forward to her articles, and she's made so much impact within the cybersecurity space. And her name is Confidence Staveley. So if you know her, and even if you don't know her, you can just drop your emojis on the group so that I know that you're with me today. Yay, thank you. I see them coming in. Thank you. So Confidence Staveley is a multi-award winning cybersecurity leader, an author, and a leading voice at the intersection of AI and cybersecurity. She holds the CISSP, CSSLP, and CCISO certifications, and serves on the World Economic Forum's Global Future Council on Cybersecurity. Her recognition includes being named a top 40 global thought leader in security and safety, among several other global cybersecurity honors. Confidence is the founder and editor in chief of AI Cyber Magazine, host of the AI Cyber podcast, and leads CyberSafe Foundation, a nonprofit focused a nonprofit focused on expanding access to cybersecurity and AI education. So, Confidence, thank you so much for being here with us today. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ebun, for having me. And thank you so much to the Esentry team for inviting me. And um, hosting me basically to hear what I have to say about the threat landscape and, share some of my insights from my vantage points, which I think is also shared with your good selves on what it looks like, for organizations, specifically startups, as it has to do with cybersecurity. So let's get right into it. If you're just joining us, I'm also very excited to have you here. Please stick around. There's a lot to unpack, and I'm hoping that this will bring you a whole lot of value. So I want to start off by laying out a scenario here, and then letting you see, a lot of the things that we see as gaps. And the examples I'm going to be bringing forward are just three companies unnamed. One is a fintech, one is a payment infrastructure company or a startup, one is a company that provides core banking, right? And I want to tell you that over 1 billion in confirmed fraudulent activities have been recorded between them in the past 6 months. And if you're not from Nigeria, for example, you don't know what 1 billion naira equates to. That's close to $1 million. So this is the scale of the things that we are seeing on the African continent. And imagine if you, as a startup, got involved in something like this and lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, it's a lot of money, anyhow you want to look at it, right? And what we have also seen that across all three of these, you know, there was no automated detection that was done. Nothing was fired up to alert anyone to triage and look at what was actually happening. In fact, the first company found out during routine account reconciliation. That's how they found out, right? Well after the fact. The second found out from third-party support ticket. The third one found out when the national settlement system called them. And in all three cases, like I've mentioned, the fraud had already been finished. People, the threat actors and the bad guys have walked away with stuff, right? And I don't want that to be you. If you want to read more about, possibly a lot of these sort of scenarios, please check out the report that has been published by esentry. But I want to basically really zoom out on why this actually happened and some of the key areas that I think make it really worse. In each of this scenario, the logs that would have answered the investigation did not exist in the first place. There were no egress logging in one environment, for example. So a fraud script ran inside the client's own cloud environment, and the responsible workload could not be identified afterwards. And this is why prevention, generally speaking, is better than responding to an incident. If you have some sort of infrastructure or some sort of process around cybersecurity before you even need it, right? You won't be caught in a situation where there is no source IP retention on authentication records, for example, like we saw in another scenario, right? So you will not see a situation where sessions just continue, and they could not be reconstructed for basically investigation. And we also saw, for example, in the third attack, that the attacker cleared the Windows event logs entirely before anyone arrived. And this is basically what we are seeing in the scene. So it behoves on us to basically take the right actions before the threat actors knock on our doors. I saw a shirt Gbolabo was wearing earlier on, and I was so excited to see him wear that shirt. I wish you could just turn on the camera so you see the shirt. And he said, the breaches are coming, because that's literally what it is. They're coming. But your preparedness, would determine what the outcomes would be for you. And we're not saying this to scaremonger or anything like that. We're just stating the facts because we see exactly what's happening in the ecosystem. And so for the next few minutes, I'm going to be talking about 5 key things that you should really pay attention to, because right now, Nigeria really just sees a lot of cyber attacks. I think we're only second to Angola by the last set of data that I saw on the African continent. I think even, yeah, on the African continent, we're second only to Angola in terms of the size of attacks that we get. But I want to really touch on what the data says as it has to do what has changed in 2026, right? And the sectors that are actually really absorbing the pressure. I want to touch on why startups are being hit at such a rate that we're seeing. And nothing really it has nothing to do with your head count, right? Specific gaps that we're seeing from so many offensive security engagements across Nigeria against Nigerian systems this year. In CyberSafe Foundation, also we've been lucky enough to be helping organizations specifically around critical community infrastructure, and we've done a lot of this these offensive security engagements as well, and we've seen a lot of the things that I'm going to be pulling into, which is very much in agreement with what esentry is doing. So I think there is no delineation to really make around that, because the ecosystem is saying the same thing. It's screaming the exact same thing. The first key thing I want to start off with is just really talking about the generic what I say vulnerabilities we are seeing and how they're playing out in the Nigerian context, right? We see, for example, the React shell. We see a lot of confirmed vulnerabilities, like, that we see in the global sphere, the React server components not being patched, and a lot of other vulnerabilities that have been, publicly disclosed, right? What we would say is sometimes organizations that are doing the proactive thing would put a honeypot, or consulting organizations that basically help other companies like your good selves, get security together. What we'll do is put a honeypot together and basically see what threat actors or bad guys are coming for. That gets to also basically inform what we are going to say as what the threat landscape looks like, aside engagements that we are having. And we saw that when any of these things that I mentioned, like the React shell vulnerability was found, threat actors basically automated compromise of those sort of honeypots, which are basically traps that we set for bad actors, right? We see compromise within 2 minutes of deployment of those honeypots, just 2 minutes. So that is how fast these things are going. Esentry, for example, the SOC saw the same behavior locally as well, when things like the FortiGate VPN, for example, had a critical vulnerability. When Ivanti also basically, Ivanti Connect also mentioned about the vulnerability in Q1 of this year. And exploitation attempts appearing inside monitored Nigerian environments within 72 hours of public disclosure. So the bad guys are not waiting. They're just hitting really, really fast. And that targeting was very deliberate, because specific appliance fingerprints and broad opportunities show that they were scanned for these vulnerabilities to see if they basically exist in those environments. So the first key thing I want to call out is the patch gap. Now, what do I mean by the patch gap? The time from when we know that a vulnerability exists to the time when all of the places where those vulnerabilities exist within the environment are found and they are closed. That patch gap, unfortunately, is very wide and is leaving a lot of things, a lot of gaps for bad guys to get in. In fact, from our research, we see that there are 43 days. Organizations in Nigeria would take an average of 43 days to basically close those gaps. And I'm talking to you about 72 hours of exploitation for a global vulnerability in Lagos, Nigeria, right? So what are we talking about when it takes you so long? And most of the time is because we do not know where exactly, or you do not know exactly where those appliances, those software tools, those vulnerabilities actually sit in your environment. So people don't even know that they have those tools already in the environment. So they are not able to quickly respond and then be able to patch them. So the patch gap is one very, very strong area. The second shift that I basically see, and I want to call out very much, and maybe it's even bigger, is the trust that replaced exploitation, right? Trust, not vulnerability. Exploitation is now the primary surface of attack. Attackers are increasingly let in rather than breaking in. They are no longer trying to hack. They are basically logging in, like a lot of my colleagues would say, and I want to borrow from them. And why that is so is the three cases that I just mentioned at the beginning of this conversation really make it concrete. Because in May, for example, GitHub disclosed that attackers breached internal repositories after compromising, an employee device through a poison VS Code extension. So we have another example of, for example, PCP, claiming responsibility of about 3,800 stolen repositories for over $50,000, right? And they later jointly advertised, with Lapsus, about all of their spoil and all of the things that they were able to do. And that's on a global scene. But then this also still trickled down to African startups and Nigerian startups, for example. Because one extension in one developer's computer, for example, or laptop, is basically a trusted session, right? And that can and will be exploited by cyber criminals. So when they're not having to guess your passwords, but the things you've already given access to on your laptops or on your systems, generally speaking, right? If those things are already compromised upstream, right, they can flow right down to your environment. And if you do not know that those things are already compromised, you do not know how to basically fix them. So if, for example, a developer clones a repository, like we've seen with all of those other, for example, those other compromised tools that developers are using, like NPM, for example, right? What happens is that the node spawns a shell, credentials and API tokens leave the environment, and the payload deletes itself. So the difference between that happening, right, and you having, say, a partner that actually looks at your logs and is really helping you, is that there will be some form of automated detection that's fired on that endpoint, on that developer's endpoints, before basically that sort of credentials stealing gets to happen. And it's basically will get to be found because someone is actually looking at it. And that's what a lot of us miss, and a lot of us do not have. Someone actually actively looking at our environment and being able to see if something is going wrong and help us fix that, or help us for the time being, even block that transaction from going out. So that whole, trust being an access point. I'll give you another example. A lot of us use OAuth, for example, for consents. A lot of us use OAuth for logins across our environment. Now, if, for example, there's been an attack and OAuth credentials have been stolen, what happens is that that access is already given to the other party that may be a threat actor, maybe a bad guy. And when that person is logging in, they do not need a password anymore. It's one click that grants a non-expiring access to that particular resource, which could be your inbox, which could be your SharePoint, which could be your DocuSign, which could be your Teams, which could be your Google Workspace. So all of these are things that we're seeing, that trust being exploited across startups, across enterprises, is what we're seeing very strongly. And I also want to touch on a couple of other things, like your would I say your overarching controls or overarching things that you can do to make your security better, right? For example, if you're defending against business email compromise and you do not have SPF, you do not have DKIM, you do not have DMARC, for example, I mean, there's very little or nothing for the threat actor to struggle with before they walk past straight right in to your environment, because the email they can send emails from your inbox and they would look like they're authentic, but then they are not. So those areas of trust are some of the key things that need to be sorted within your environment to ensure that you're not a case study, and you're not missing money that you should have been using as profit for your investors, or to even make your business grow, because that's what you need right now, right? I'm going to move on to the third, which is what I'll call industrialization. Yes, I'll call it industrialization because of the scale of what we're seeing happening in the space. 30,000 web application attack events are what we're talking about here. 5,000 of those automated, but attempts blocked, right? And they were dominated by things like credential stuffing. What do I mean by that? That means that an attack has happened before, the bad guys have stolen passwords, and they're trying it across systems for the same user and hoping that the user is using the same password and they can just get in. And if worst case scenario, that user doesn't have two-factor authentication also turned on, They will log in and go straight right in. So credential stuffing is something we're seeing very much on the rise. We're also seeing account enumeration through API abuse. My goodness, this one is so bad. So the bad guys are just trying to find out, oh, how many accounts are here? Can we run through them? Can we leverage API security issues here to basically get in and then move laterally across the organization? Can we scrape some data? Can we scrape some data that's aimed at financial data? And they're doing this at scale. And that bot infrastructure now rotates payloads, for example, across residential IP ranges and times. And it blends itself with basically peak hour traffic. So it sort of looks like, oh, this is something that is just happening, and this is normal, right? And if you don't have, for example, rate limiting really put in place, you're going to be toast, right? And so things like putting in IP reputation, checks is no longer going to work. Is no longer going to be enough. And these are things we all need to pay attention to. Now, if you go to the two-letter words everyone is speaking about, right? I'm going to say it, and I'm sure before I say it, you already know the two-letter acronym, right? AI. Now, AI is on both sides. Attackers are using AI. Defenders are using AI. Attackers are using AI, but you who is supposed to defend infrastructure for your startup is not using AI to defend, right? How are you supposed to measure up, right? So that's the key thing that I want to pull up as well. I saw this report by Verizon, and they analyzed 793 threat actors who received, say, enforcement action for policy violations, right? Most of the actors used AI, across 15 documented techniques. The most AI assisted part of that was, say, malware perform functions that already had, about 55 known equivalents, right? So AI is already scaling what is already done or what has worked. IBM, for example, found out that 1 in 4 malicious breaches were AI enabled. I also saw an Interpol report, for example, recently that said that threat actors and bad guys are using AI at such a scale that they have never seen before. So these things are actually happening. We're done with H1 of 2026, and we're going to continue to see them. We're going to continue to see them in the rest of the year. But what I want to call your attention to is, are you ready, or are you going to be responding after the fact of maybe losing money? So it's important that we pay attention to that and really do what we need to do to protect our organizations. And maybe I should actually throw out some really strong points here. One point that I want to really hammer on is something that I saw from the NDPC, which is basically the data protection czar of Nigeria. The data protection regulator itself has reported over 1,500 attack attempts against its own network on a single week. That is the NDPC here, right? And we're seeing a lot. I think Gbolabo is also going to share some numbers, specifically for startups. But the in Q1 alone, I think we saw that about 281,500 accounts tied to Nigerian users were newly breached, and this basically ranks Nigeria, I think, about 34th on the most breached worldwide for the quarter. So cumulatively, about 24.1 million compromised accounts since 2004 is basically what we're talking about here. And it is higher. I think it's the third highest in sub-Saharan Africa. And that means that around 1 in 10 Nigerians have been caught in a breach at some point. So imagine that you, for example, don't have your API security, together. And you see that 1 in 5, for example, have been breached, and someone has that, combining that with knowing how to leverage and abuse APIs, and maybe you haven't done you haven't checked for Bola vulnerabilities, you haven't checked for a lot of the other security vulnerabilities. They can just literally iterate through your account and basically steal a lot of money. And that is exactly what we are seeing across the enterprise. But some part of it also is not really sophisticated, right? They're just like what I said, credential stuffing, right? They're trying passwords. A lot of it is also very simple stuff. that the attackers are doing. But the most important thing that I want to call out here is not that it's a simple technique, even around fraud. It's the fact that there is really no one looking at your organization, paying attention, automating detection, automating the response, at least even if it's just to block and to reduce the damage. There is literally nothing. So the only thing that sometimes stops the attackers is their skill level. Like, can you even imagine that? You shouldn't be finding out way after the event. No, you should be finding out that something is going wrong and you're able to nib it in the bud. And that is the call to action that I want to make today, that we actually invest in ensuring that we're able to nip it in the bud. So I want to touch on maybe a bit of sector by sector. I think my time is almost spent, but a bit of sector by sector approach here in terms of what we're seeing across the threat landscape. First and foremost, financial services carries the highest rating and the highest risk in our assessment, alongside IT services and data centers. And I mean, you can tell why this is the case. One, they have a lot of money. Two, in circulation. Two, they have a lot of sensitive data in their purview, in basically in their care, right? So the structural reasons and incentives are there for the threat actors to basically come in, use their tools, and basically try to compromise your organization. There's also the part of things that when they steal that information, they can monetize the sensitive data really quickly. So for example, if they steal BVNs, NINs, even your KYC packages, and account credentials, they have immediate resale value. Immediate resale value. There's also the huge regulatory exposure that you have if, for example, this is found out by the regulators and the threat actors. So what they also do, they'll try to extort you and try to maybe put it around somewhere and encrypt that information in your environment so that they can twist your arm into paying a lot of money. And these are the things that we're really, really seeing. These are the things that we're seeing at scale. That financially motivated actors like Byte to Breach, for example, are really biting in the Nigerian startup ecosystem and generally in the Nigerian ecosystem as a whole. They've claimed a lot of breaches, even in the first half of this year. They've really, really had a lot of victims, really, have a lot of losses as a result of their activities. And it's worthy for us to understand their tradecraft. How do they go about doing what they're doing? Because it's entirely learnable and it's entirely preventable. If, for example, you can do what you need to do today. For example, Byte Breach has what they call a time-based blind SQL injection against unpatched internet exposed platforms. I'll say that again. They are basically going towards SQL injection or using SQL injection against unpatched internet exposed platforms. Again, I said earlier on in the beginning of this conversation that it's not that we don't hear the news. Sometimes we know what is happening in the world, but we may not even know that those tools exist in our environment, or those softwares or those packages in sense of developers are being used in our environment. We do not have the tools to basically check if those are in use. And so we do not do what we need to do before the attackers come knocking at our doors, because like Gbolabo says, the breaches are coming, right? In one confirmed case like that I'm going to mention without calling out, an exposed GLP instance queried slowly over a period of 10 days, paralyzed roughly 20 rented VPS nodes across this particular organization. And basically what the attackers try to do is that they try to make sure that the rate limiting is below the threshold. So they were not triggering what typically people will be looking out for. And that expertise to be able to know how to tune tools, how to ensure that the tools do the heavy lifting and they're able to do detection is something that esentry is able to do very, very well. And so I want to make sure that you understand that bit. If there's anything I'm saying here that you do not understand, please let me know. But The whole idea is that patching is very, very important. And if you're not taking account of what's in your environment and being able to monitor the logs, ensure that you're able to pick up on something going wrong and nipping it in the bud, it could lead to losses, right? The other sectors too that, of course, are suffering losses. Government is also suffering losses, is one of the most targeted sectors nationally in Nigeria. I've mentioned earlier on financial services, but government is another one. Payment service providers as well are also very major. A bank went under regulatory investigation recently because of a national compromise. So that is something that we're seeing very easily also happen. And the threat actors, again, alongside Byte to Breach, we have, I think, S Forum, Bot. We have a lot of them that are really hitting on Nigerians and Nigerian organizations and startups. But I want to close out my talk by talking about why startups. Why are startups basically being targeted? That startups are really being targeted. We're seeing that, of course, even in the financial sector, like I mentioned, for a lot of reasons. I've mentioned, for example, your KYC package as a very attractive thing for cyber criminals. But we see very clearly that you have data that attackers really want. That's the first thing. And it's not just about what they're able to do with that data from you and being able to sell it directly, but it can create an access point for them to even be able to hit bigger organizations. So you are a step in the ladder, unfortunately and fortunately, right? You are a step in the ladder for them. So they will hit you also because a lot of times startups are too busy building, too engaged in bringing their vision to life and leaving security as an afterthought, right? It's about the product getting to market as fast as possible that we really care about. So we are not doing what we need to do around security. We're leaving it as an afterthought. And because of that, the bad guys who see a door in, get in, be able to use us as ladders to be able to access bigger organizations as well. While, of course, knowing that when they hit us, impact is immediate in the ecosystem. You're able to quickly want to move around to make sure that you do something about it. So that is why startups are increasingly targeted and will continue to be targeted. I've mentioned two reasons, but there are many more because the economics really just supports it. So your rational target, you have credentials, you have the data that really, really matters to them and can be a raw material, quite literally. So you are now the access path for the point above them. And because of that, it makes sense for you to be really, really targeted. And so I'm going to stop here because I think I have maybe run out of time. I'm not so sure. But I'm going to stop here and say that if nothing is being logged in your environment, you're toast very soon. If your tooling decays after deployment, you're toast. If your SIM source coverage is incomplete, you are toast. If your browser extensions are not managed, you are toast. In fact, you're a dog, just waiting. Yes, if your OAuth grants are ungoverned, which means every connected app, for example, holds a live credential that outlives the person who authorized it, you are toast, right? If third parties are trusted without verification, you are toast very, very soon. And if nobody knows the regulatory checks and basically ensures that you are meeting those regulations, the regulator too will need to knock at your door. It's not just the threat actors who would knock at your door asking what's happening here. And you would lose money, you would lose time. You would get some distraction from what you're supposed to be focused on, which is solving problems that you have set up this business to do, and you will now be trying to put out fires that if you had put some sort of thing in place, some sort of arrangement in place, which will not cost you an arm and a leg, by the way, you would have been able to basically navigate this. So yes, I'm going to close out by saying you need to log because you need to prove what happened and you need to be able to investigate and possibly be able to stop that threat actor right in their tracks. You need to be able to patch and ensure that you are beating the attacker's clock, right? Not just anytime you like, but you're beating the attacker's clock. You are enforcing authorization at the back end on every endpoint. This thing you guys do of, just implementing your checks or authorization in the front end is a joke because I mean, what tells you that I'm always going to use your service from the browser? There's nothing that says I cannot use it from another tool. And that's what we don't provision for because we're not thinking about security, right? You need to be able to audit cloud storage, IAM, that's access management and secrets every week, right? You need to be able to do that. And so that is something that we'll be discussing further as we go along. I'm going to, see the stage right now. And I think I've spoken quite a lot and maybe you've gotten tired of my voice, but I'll be back with questions. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments or in the chat box. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Confidence. Like, it is always such a pleasure hearing you speak. And of course not, you have not spoken too much. But I was wishing that we could turn back the hands and let's take it back to 3 o'clock. And then you start all over again. Thank you so much. You've shared so much information, in terms of how different organizations may not have been seeing cybersecurity prior to today. And funny enough, as you were speaking, something came to mind that a lot of organizations or individuals, when you are building your organization, it's like building a house, right? So you have this picture of what the house is supposed to be like. You have a bungalow that you want to build. You built it. You put in the nice TV, the nice sofas. You have a nice kitchen. You have a nice living room. You have, AC everywhere. You have your inverter. And when you are done with all of that, what happens? You don't even buy door. Or some
Oh
people,
my
you have
God. I like
or
that
some people, right?
analogy.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
some people, or maybe you buy a door, but there's no gate. Or some people, you have a door, you have a gate, but it's not locked. And that is what security does, right? And that's what confidence is, really sharing with us today, that at every level there is a security measure that is necessary. Some of you need gates, some of you need locks to your gate, some of you need doors, locks and gates, right? And I really love how you ended it where you were speaking about toast. And I saw, in the comment that someone had said there that for some people they actually burnt toast. So they're more than toasted, right? So thank you so much. A lot has been shared. And what I want our attendees today to do is, as she was speaking, I'm sure many of you had imagined where you were, as an organization, or where you are rather today as an organization, and just realizing that, hey, we've actually not thought of this, or we've not done this. And I have a question for you and I want you to answer, right? If you have realized today that there is a gap in your security, or you don't even have any security measure, from all that you've heard from Confidence, the different scenarios that she's played out for the startups, for the SMEs, for the big enterprises, what would be your first step? So, yes, I have realized that there is a security gap somewhere, however little. What would be your first step? There's a poll that you'd see on your screen. We want to know, are you going to book an assessment right away? Are you going to raise it with a co-founder and just say, immediately after this call, I'm scheduling a call with our co-founder, I'm going into my co-founder's office to speak to them about this? Or are you going to try and fix it yourself? So go right in there and see where the issues are, where the gaps are, and see what you can do to fix it, or probably do nothing about it. And the truth is this, not everybody will do something. That's the honest truth. Today is probably not your first time for some guys hearing about this thing, and you just walk away and do nothing. But I'm hoping that after all that we have said, everyone would at least take a step towards either booking an assessment or having those internal conversations today. Now, I just want to speak a little bit about what we mean by an assessment. Just imagine it as having a one on one with confidence. So everything that she has shared today, she's not going to be hypothetical about it. She's going to be looking at your environment, looking at what you are doing, looking at the different exposures that exist today. And on the basis of all that is seen, there's a proper diagnosis that is done, and also remedies and solutions are advised to you on what you need to do. So that's what the assessment is all about. It's more of a customized or a curated session with us, where we can understand your environment, see what's going on, and we can advise you on what needs to be done. And I want to believe everybody needs that today. Even if you think you know you have it all, having an expert do it. It's like somebody having a headache and saying, let me take Panadol. But yeah, you might go to the doctor and they tell you you need more than Panadol. So I'm looking forward to more people. I can see just 9 people that have hit the post saying they'll book an assessment today. So we want more of you to click the buttons. We have our guys here on the call that will be attending to you right away. And it's nothing complicated. You can either have it today or we book a session at a later date where we can speak to you in more details. You can ask all your questions, and we take it from there. Confidence is also still with us. She's still with us, and she said if you have any questions, you can go ahead and drop it on the chat box. So I'm going to do a quick scroll before I invite our next speaker. So
Ebo,
we have, yeah,
Ebo,
go ahead.
I just wanted to add something that I think keep my mind very, very important that I mentioned that because a lot of us basically just leave it to chance. Um, and the thing I want to mention is basically phishing resistant multi-factor authentication. And we're seeing that has become very, very important. And the need to have that everywhere that matters is very, very important. Because I know I mentioned even multi-factor authentication wasn't turned on somewhere, but right now we're seeing that even with that turned on, if it's not multi-factor authentication implemented in a way that's resistant to phishing, you will still get phished, or your employees will still get phished, and I mean a lot of havoc can be caused from there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Confidence doesn't want to leave this webinar with everything inside her head. She has to say it. So that's for someone, actually. That's for someone. So I hope you guys caught that. The poll is still available. So during the course of this, webinar, you can still go ahead and drop it. Confidence is still with us. You can still go ahead and drop your question. So I'm going straight to our next speaker, someone that I'm very excited about, Gbolabo Awelewa. Gbolabo, show us your T-shirt now. We want to be seeing that. Yeah. Wants to be seeing it. Breaches are coming. Breaches
What's
are
one of
coming.
these? Oh,
Oh dear. All right, great. So Gbolabo Awelewa is a digital cybersecurity and enterprise technology leader with over 20 years of experience at the intersection of AI, cybersecurity, and digital trust. He is the Chief Business Officer at esentry and also the co-founder of both esentry and CyberVergent, an AI native digital trust platform. That's CyberVergent. He has held senior leadership roles, including CTO, CISO, and enterprise security architect across fintechs, multinationals, and financial institutions. So that just lets you know that he's been there as well. So he understands whatever position you may be in today. Gbolabo is a recognized thought leader and a global speaker on AI, cybersecurity innovation, digital risk, and the future of digital trust. He also holds multiple industry certifications and academic qualifications, including an executive education from Harvard, and advises organizations and technology startups across Africa. Gbolabo, you're welcome. I want to see some emojis, guys. Let's welcome Gbolabo. Thank you. Over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Egun, for the introduction. And thank you very much, my friend Confidence, for. No, I was telling Egun when we were discussing and planning this session that I'm not sure how you want me to pick up after Confidence, but then again, in my mind, I'm like, she's done most of the work. Let me just show some things and see how it goes. Huh? But yeah, it's quite exciting to be here. It's always a pleasure to be here. And Confidence has talked about a lot of statistics, a lot of data, use cases, and and that's where I'm going to be starting from. We're going to be looking at doing a poll, looking at the data, and especially from the report we just shared for our half-year report and the Eye of Horus. For those that have not seen it, please download. I think the link has been shared in the chat where we've talked about what we've seen this year so far. And I like how Confidence has referenced a lot of it. Just so you've heard about the data, she's talked about the data, and the question now is that let's see if it is your data. So I'm basically saying it if it's your data is just, from a gut feel perspective, what is your current situation? If you're being honest with yourself. And so we'll be moving straight to a poll before I start to just ask everybody on the session that where exactly do you stand today? Where does your startup stand right now from a cybersecurity perspective. Do you have a real cybersecurity program? Have you done a few basic things, nothing formal, which, it happens? Or are you being honest, you've not started? And that's because you've put it as an afterthought, sort of, or you're not sure. And which is why you're here. You want to know where exactly you are. Well, so far from the polls, everybody seems sure. So there's no not sure. Um, we're getting good numbers on having a security program. But again, we would implore you to think about it because there's a chance you've done a few basics and nothing formal, not a structured security program. And there's also a very good chance that you have not started. So I'll give it some time for us to process it. All right. So I think we should have enough now. I think we should have enough now. And this is not surprising. I still see some people who are not sure they're moving around between having a real security program and just having a few basics, which is fairly understandable because some people will turn whatever they put in place as a security program, but as we go, we'll be able to firm up. I like the fact that some people are not sure, and that's why you are here. That is very good. That is very important. I also like the fact that people are being honest. You've not started anything. All right. So I think we're in a good place to pick off. As in, this is not surprising. Um, I like the fact that every time we do this poll, every time we do this assessment, in a room full of 10 SMEs, 10 startups, the highest is always we've done a few basics, nothing formal. And that is relatable. That is, I won't say understandable, but relatable based on the nature of the business or the priority of the specific business as a when you're starting. So, like I said, most times when we're in a room, we're talking to startups, we're talking to businesses, the split is always as it is, as it has stated here. And it's not bad, it's the reality. And guess what? It's not about where you've landed, which is what you've chosen. It's actually about what is your starting point, really. So the first thing you want to do is you want to be honest with yourself that, what, this is where I'm at. I just have this antivirus on endpoints. We've not put any controls in place. We're not thinking of recruiting a CISO. You know, Nobody's pursuing us, so we won't comply to any standards. And it's a good place to start. It could be a budget issue, it could be anything. And you also don't want to fake a mature program or believe that, what, when I have this amount of budget, I should be able to invest and achieve that maturity. That also would hardly ever be the case. But what really matters, like what's the most important thing is knowing exactly where you stand and not assuming that you have a level of security posture that should take you across that bridge when it comes to managing your customer data, having a sustainable go-to-market, and what I mean by sustainable go-to-market for startups is if you launch a solution and for some reasons you need to take it back or send some messages to your customers that, oh, we're doing some maintenance because you experienced a breach or there were some gaps identified, then it means the planning is not optimal. And that's one of the things Confidence has been emphasizing that hey, it is so like we can't position cybersecurity as an afterthought. And a couple of reasons why, which we'll get to, by the way. But I would like to talk about three things that we believe that startups, small businesses, medium-scale businesses should do, to ensure they are proactively running a secure operations. And in a way, they're a bit simplistic. And I like how Confidence sort of almost repeats it every other minute as she's talking about. And the first one is know what you have. You get visibility into your assets, your systems, your data, and anything else you're working with your business. Effective visibility. And that's because you cannot protect what you don't see. So we'll come to monitoring very soon. Number two is fix the basics first. But to fix the basics, you need to do a vulnerability assessment. And it's when you do a vulnerability assessment That's when you will know, okay, whether you have access control issues, cloud configuration issues, or system configuration issues, and whether you are monitoring properly, putting the right systems in scope, your critical systems, your business-facing systems, your customer-facing systems, systems managing your customer data. You need to know who has access to what, who accessed it at what particular time, and what actions did they take. And that's what monitoring helps you achieve. The important part of fixing the basics first these basics are the gaps that the attackers actually use. So when you fix the basics, you are on that journey already of making it very difficult for an attacker to breach your environment or to disrupt your business. And then you scale from there. And then number three is build security into how you grow. Here you can use different lines. So from a business perspective, we'll say, integrate cybersecurity into your roadmap, whether it's your product roadmap, your service roadmap, or your operations. And I always tell businesses this, that I don't know, depending on how cybersecurity has been seen, they think it's some expensive venture, but you see, security scales. Security scales with your business. By the time you do an assessment, you scope your business properly, you would discover that you can achieve some low-hanging fruits, put some basic controls in place, and as you scale, as you gain more market share or as your customer base increases, as you develop more channels for your business, you continue to scale your security operations and improve your security posture. And this is exactly what our Startup Security Bouquet, is built to do. It's built to empower you as you start up your business, as you scale your business, and plan effectively as your business grows. The beauty of this is why we set up this product is because over the years we've worked with a lot of startups. In fact, we're very super proud and excited to always talk about the unicorns that were with us when they started and how we've worked and scaled with them to become enterprise businesses now, and how we're still servicing them and providing optimum cybersecurity services for them. And also over the course of the year, some of the patterns we see, which, and it's repeatable year on year, as we onboard new startups or work with new businesses, we see this all the time. You will see a typical business from month one to the first month to the sixth month, so half a year, focus is go to market, shipping the product fast. And we find scenarios where the engineering team are sharing multiple users sharing single admin logon. Then cybersecurity is on the roadmap, but it's for later, maybe after raising seed fund or Series A. We get a lot of vibes around, do we really need this? Is it important? Will it stop the product from going to market? So we see that a lot. Another pattern we get over time is, okay, for organizations that successfully scale first 6 months without a breach or security challenges, they now start getting more customers and more partners that want to work with them. And I'm sure every startup on this call today has gotten this request from every tier 1 or tier 2 bank that you try to integrate to. They would share a security questionnaire asking you specific questions. So on their own part, it's called third-party risk assessment. And they're asking you very important questions. What specific controls do you have in place? What certifications have you achieved? How do you manage your customer data? In fact, someone will ask you, what encryption levels do you use to secure data? A lot of questions. And we've had startups and businesses run to us immediately to say, Gbolabo, we have this issue. How can you help us fix it this week? I'm like, you are starting from the beginning. There's no fix. Like, you now need to start putting controls in place. And in fact, I've had a customer call to say, well, I need to achieve PCI in 2 weeks. How do you achieve PCI DSS in 2 weeks? First, you need to even have controls in place. You need to do an assessment. You need to put documentation in place. It's not possible. And that's why we are preaching and pushing the proactive approach of not waiting or not hitting that inflection point or facing these challenges before you move. The most dangerous spot and pattern we've seen is when the business believes they've arrived, which is they are growing, they are scaling, but there is no cybersecurity program. There's no integration at the different stages of their roadmap. And then, bam, there's a major breach. Misconfigured storage buckets, exposes customer data. Customers that you just acquired, customers that just started enjoying your service. There's a breach, it's announced, and then we are scuttling for recovery. Recovery, brand and reputation, in the mud, regulator now on your case, customers move away to some other competition. It's chaos at that point in time. And yes, we've worked with businesses that have experienced this. And the first thing we do is clean up first. So digital forensic incident response, we help them clean up, identify the root cause, and then recommendation on controls, implement. Of course, they'll still face the regulator, possibly pay fines, manage their customer base. And it's a lot of drama. It's not something you want to experience. And I would say that only possibly 1 out of 10 startups recover from such a breach. A lot of them close out eventually, and either they pivot or move on to other things or rebrand after a while. And I'll be honest with you, if you look at it, none of these companies were reckless. They were just moving fast, go to market. The time is now. But there was no structured approach of integrating, security controls into their operations, into their product launch, and also dealing and managing, their customer data. And that is why we introduced the Startup Security Bouquet earlier this year, and we've been pushing, we've been engaging, we've had some startups on board, and we thought that who better to partner with to also evangelize on this than Confidence Staveley. And truth is, this product, this solution has been designed to meet startups where they are and grow with them as they scale. That is the most important thing. The question is, where are you today? Then we are looking at what are you looking at. So for example, part of the questions we ask is, okay, what are your plans? I'll give you an example. A startup comes and says, oh, the structure of our business is B2B, or we have a web platform, blah, blah, blah. And we ask a question, do you intend to set up a mobile channel soon? Will there be mobile apps soon? Or are you introducing third parties, API consumption? So we listen to the customer, we plan and say, okay, you know what, this is what you need to plan for. Even we've had startups work with us to when they are raising funds, because I'll give you an example. The startup has built a minimum viable product, huge potential, catching fire, everything looks good, but they need to plan. And the investor or those partners need to see that you're thinking from a cybersecurity perspective. So they come to us and literally drop a budget for their security program as they scale to 100,000 users, for example, or 10,000 partners, or 500 customers. So depending on, the type of business, the channels that will be utilized, technology also, and even whether you're collecting customer data or you'll be partnering with a lot of organizations, we would help you structure your program and help you scale. And again, what problem does it solve? What problem does our Startup Bouquet solve? We've heard stories about startups thinking because they subscribe to some cloud platform that they are secure. So they just leave it to the third party. Not true. We've also heard a lot of talk about startups when they approach us and say, hey, no, Gbolabo, we can't afford you, or, it's larger than life. And I think it depends on who they are talking to. Maybe to their partner, principal partner, maybe a tier 1 or tier 2 bank, or maybe some already medium-scale enterprise, fintech or technology company, and they think, oh, you know what, it's not even something we can afford, maybe when we grow to that stage. And we're saying, for you to grow to that stage, you actually need to have a program in place, you have to have controls in place to scale effectively or smoothly. And what we do is we sort of give that communication to close the gap, because, these concerns they're a bit of like a myth. I'm not sure where it came up from. And what we try to do is we give that communication, we guide, and by the time we're scoping with the startup, they actually come to terms with the fact that, oh, we actually can achieve this and we can plan with this. And what do you achieve with the bouquet? So what exactly is the bouquet? So the bouquet is a set of services built around where a startup is today. You get whether it's early stage, growth stage, and or what sector are you partaking in? And also we discuss budgets. What are you thinking? And our approach really helps because it's advisory led. It's implementation backed. the good thing about our business is we really get hands-on. So we're not just, off the shelf selling solutions. It's a conversation. It's understanding your business, understanding your infrastructure, integrating with you effectively. And the idea is to build your program to grow with you instead of replacing or instead of being replaced, as you scale. So you're growing and you know that as we're scaling, these are the solutions we're looking at. These are the additional controls we're looking at. And we're here to support you across it. Okay, so going straight into the bouquet, because I'm sure a lot of people have been thinking, what exactly is in this bouquet? What does it comprise of? Like, what do we get if we are thinking of subscribing or participating in the Startup Bouquet? And what we are giving is capabilities at scale, and the first things first is always an assessment, assessment through, the ongoing security leadership of an organization or the technical structure of an organization or even your operations generally. So we do like a security readiness assessment, which is always the first stage. It's never an assumption, oh, that based on this business, oh, you need API security, or you need a web application firewall. No, we have that security readiness assessment, which Confidence has mentioned, and Ebru mentioned that, hey, you know what, if you want us to engage you immediately after this program today, we can do that, or we can schedule one for later this week. So we start with the security readiness assessment. We would move, I'm sure the outcome for the security readiness assessment will determine most businesses, all businesses have a web application today and leverage APIs, either developing API endpoints, consuming APIs from a third party. There will be a need for a web application firewall, API security service, so API protection. Every business needs an endpoint detection and response service because you use laptops, you use whether physical servers or cloud infrastructure. Those critical systems need to be protected, and the EDR is the solution for you. Also, every business that leverage technology needs to do a vulnerability assessment, secure code review. If you've built an application, you have a development team, you will continuously build applications or build new features into your application, regularly doing a vulnerability assessment and, reviewing your code is very critical. From a regulatory perspective, every technology-enabled business collecting customer data has to comply to the NDPA. Confidence also mentioned it, talk about the NDPC and some of their programs. And we always tell our customers that the proof to any partner or customer that you have a security program in place is the ISO 27001, that framework. In fact, we talk to customers that are not under regulation to comply to this standard because it helps build your mindset. It helps, operationalizing the ISO 27001 helps you operate a security program effectively. Even when you're not under the pressure of regulation, you operationalize it and you continue to grow as you continue to scale and grow your business. And then there's the vCISO service, vCISO plus the SOC services. Okay, and I would take it one after the other. The SOC service is you're implementing security controls, and Confidence mentioned it too. You have controls in place, but who's monitoring? Who's supporting it? Who's monitoring? So today, we have customers where we are not the ones that help them implement the controls. What we just do is we know you have a lot of controls. Okay, let's help you optimize the controls, which is review that the controls have been set up properly, and then carry out round-the-clock monitoring and incident response, which is you can go home from work knowing that someone is still helping you monitor your environment and wake up in the morning and come and find that someone is actually still helping you to monitor. And if there will be any incident or anomalous activity, it will be raised and then we'll work with you to respond to it effectively. Quickly talking about the vCISO service is for nimble organizations. You just want to focus on your BAU, go to market, building a secure product. And you don't want to saddle yourself with recruiting a CISO and building a security team. So outsource security services. Today, we do this for a lot of startups, a lot of our businesses. And basically, it just helps them be at rest, focusing on building amazing products, and scaling while we handle their security. For those type of customers, we're an extension of their business, and it just helps them focus on building and scaling and growing generally. The threat intelligence service has become really critical. Back in the day, threat intelligence used to be like, oh, yeah, maybe just an add-on, not so important. But now today, building a security program Even acquiring security controls without enriching it with threat intelligence service is a waste of time. How do you know about the latest IOCs or even if there are IOEs in the wild? So the threat intelligence service, we layer this for all our customers that subscribe to specific security controls and especially our SOC services. And yeah, I know Confidence mentioned stuff around phishing and the phishing simulation and incident response retainer is a bit of an awareness program where we're letting our customers know that whether quarterly, okay, I think the minimum is, I don't want to say, I think we had a customer that wanted to do this every 2 months because they were a startup and they were sure they were churning out either enhancing their product and recruiting new staff. And they were a bit paranoid from a cybersecurity perspective. And we were doing that for them every 2 months. But quarterly, biannually is actually okay. Phishing simulation, social engineering assessment with an incident response retainer is also part of the startup bouquet. So now I'm not saying that a startup needs all this. Again, we are meeting you where you are at, which is at what stage are you at? What's the nature of your business? What kind of platform have you built? What kind of infrastructure do you have? And then we're going to be looking at what service do you need to help you keep a very good security posture as you scale. And what does this mean for you, for the business? It means, confidence in, so the confidence in your customers are going to be very confident in leveraging your service. And of course, you'll be confident to also engage, pun intended, mentioning confidence every now and then. Investors, you'll be able to confidently engage and work with partners and investors that, hey, we've built a secure product, our business is secure, and you can invest in us. Also, you get clarity on your real risk, not guesswork. Today, a lot of us on this call probably are not clear on what are the risks to our business. You get what's the real risk? Is it assumption, hearsay, oh, you heard about this breach, or will it affect you? Do you really know the real risk of your business? Doing a threat risk assessment will help you appreciate and understand that. Also, for you, it's room to scale without replatforming security. So we've worked with businesses where they had started scaling before they came to us. They sort of needed to replatform. Like some things just it was a bit difficult, but it was something that had to be done. So what we are saying is you don't want to get to that level because it will delay you, to take time, it will impact your business, it will impact a lot of things. You might even lose opportunities because you have not put a security program in place. And then you would always have a response plan before you ever need one. The most effective businesses have an incident response plan. This will help you have one from a cybersecurity perspective. Like it's a very important thing to do, a very important thing to have. So how do we really work with you? So how do we work with startups? How do we work with businesses? So we are not that organization that will do an assessment, just send you a report. For us, it's a bit of an integration with your business. It's a working relationship. Again, like I mentioned earlier, it's advisory led. We have to understand your business, understand your environment. Any control, every solution we're implementing for you must integrate effectively and must, ensure it enables your business effectively. And then from a cost perspective, we are sizing to your stage. I can assure you, anybody on this call that gives us a call, we do an assessment, we'll be clear on the fact that, hey, I thought I couldn't, but maybe I can. And this is where I can start from. And then I will move. In fact, we have plans with organizations on a monthly, quarterly basis. They do this month, do this next month, or do this quarter. Then we'll try this next quarter. And then when you get funding, we'll try this, And basically, having the program just makes you look like a very, very, very serious business. And what does it look like in practice, really, is you're assessing where you are. Oh, we're a business. Oh, we've gone to market already anyway. We have this number of customers. This is the type of infrastructure. These are the risks in the wild. And these are the controls which, you prioritize the risk. And then we put specific controls in place, which is we implement solutions for you. And then we'll continue to support you. And then we don't have any customer we've implemented for that we don't engage every other week. So we're integrated to you. We're working with you at the different stages as you grow. We keep you secure. And then, we help you enjoy and appreciate your success. So what really changes when you subscribe to the Startup Bouquet? What really changes? And a typical use case I can give is before, you know, you had enterprise deals and partnerships stalling. There were just some things you couldn't do, or maybe the regulator was on your case. Or like here, as you said, you have a questionnaire you couldn't respond to because you don't have documentations, you don't have controls, so you don't seem attractive from a business perspective. You get, and then you have an engineering team where admin privileges, one admin is used by 6 people. You don't know who has access to what. I'll give you a typical example. We had a startup that had let an engineer go. And of course, because access management was not optimum, the guy still had access to their code repository and he wiped them off even after he had resigned or they had sacked him or thereabout. And guys, it was quite serious. They made it a police case. They were looking for the guy to pick him up and all that. All that could have been prevented with effective structure. That possibly wasn't expensive, just effective access control. Who has access to what? So you can't recruit a junior developer and they just have access to the repository. Someone has to be responsible. There has to be a staging, a test environment where code is moved gradually. So, and this would reflect in your documentation. You get your policies that you are developing. And this will come to place when you are thinking of putting a security program in place. Even before controls, just policies, procedures, and processes and procedures. Anyway, so that's the before. But when you subscribe to the startup bouquet, right? And then you look at this low-hanging fruit, you subscribe to some services that are affordable for you as you scale, you would have documented policies. We would definitely recommend robust access to be in place for your business. You will be able to respond to any security questionnaire because as where your business is asked, you have adequate controls in place that can justify your current state of the business. And you also can show a plan that as we scale, we would subscribe to this service and onboard the specific services. And you would look really, really serious, to any partner, any customer, any business planning to work with you. And something Confidence mentioned, she actually mentioned it. She said, it's not about the head count. So there's no need for a head count. It's just a very good plan that matches exactly where you are. And then one more thing before I go, we have done this before, but it's good for us to, from what you've seen, you get, let's ask the question again. If you found out today that you had a security gap, what would you do first? If you found out today that you had a security gap, what exactly would you do first? Are you going to be booking an assessment right away? Are you going to raise it with your co-founder, with the management team, the leadership team first? Are you going to try to fix it yourself? It's possible. Claude, ChatGPT, use, AI, or are you not going to do anything about it, depending on what you're thinking? So it's important to see where we are at now. I like the fact that I'm saying trying to fix it ourselves. All right, so as we put this up, I think this is me rounding off on my own presentation, and Evan is going to take it from here, and then looking at the results from the poll, close out
Yeah.
successfully. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you.
Hi, Gbolabo. Before you go, we have a question for you. I just want to
Oh,
read it
okay.
out so you can quickly address it. It says,
Okay.
"Hi," or Israel is from Israel. He says, "Hi, what do you do by MFA with phishing in consideration?" Or what do you mean? Maybe is what he wanted to say by MFA with phishing in consideration.
MFA with
With phishing.
phishing and consideration. So MFA with phishing and consideration. Okay, so MFA is multi-factor authentication. Um, does it prevent phishing? Possibly to an extent. But what we typically recommend for phishing is the phishing simulation, which is part of the assessments we do. And basically is to test your business, which is management team, technical team, development team, every member of the organization on the ability to identify the phishing attack and respond adequately, which is reporting a phishing attempt. MFA typically prevents unauthorized access. So whether due to phishing, your credentials were hijacked, right? So, for phishing, maybe you clicked on a link and username and password have been gotten somehow. But if your critical systems, critical assets are two-factor enabled, the fact that they would need to get a code from your authenticator, whether a physical token or an app on your phone, means they won't be able to use your credentials. So MFA with phishing means, okay, the phishing maybe breached the credentials, but because you put MFA in place, so by the time we are doing a phishing simulation or we're doing an assessment from a phishing perspective, we are recommending that, okay, you know what, let's just say you still get breached from a phishing attempt, your credentials can be utilized because you have MFA in place. So it's like someone phishing you and getting your maybe mobile banking details. But you've set a physical token, maybe your bank or your fintech gave you a token, or the token app is separate, and the bad actor, of course, doesn't have access to your soft token. So they won't get the token and they can't consummate the transaction. I don't know if I responded to the question.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. Confidence, do you want to add anything to what Gbolabo has said? Just an
Yeah.
additional thought.
Yes. Just an additional thought. I mean, Gbolabo has really covered a lot of grounds on this. But I want to also say that with multi-factor authentication, there are levels to it. So, if you're still doing SMS as a way of implementing multi-factor authentication, then you are at the very lowest rank or lowest tier and still very much at risk. So, making sure that you're able to bring things up to speed is something to also prioritize and look into. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks for that. We still have a few more minutes on the session today, so you can, go ahead, drop your questions while I round up today's session. So, firstly, I want to say a very, very big thank you to you, Gbolabo. Always such a pleasure as well speaking to you. And there's a lot that has been shared, a lot that has been shared today. Just casting our minds back a little bit, Confidence spent time sharing with us about Patch Gap. She raised three important things that she wanted to highlight today. Patch Gap, where there is a wide gap between an organization finding out that there is even a vulnerability in their system and them going ahead to actually resolve or fix that vulnerability. And, based on data, she also shared with us how that gap is widening more and more day by day, meaning that people are even getting breached and they are not aware. Maybe it's a third party that tells them, or they're in a meeting, they're doing some review session and they find out that, oh, something has gone wrong, or, some funds are missing, nowhere to be found. Right. She also shared with us on trust being an access point, and shared different scenarios where seemingly simple areas, even as easy as your username, passwords being shared. I know Gbolabo also shared with that, and how that can be an access point from that system even to other systems or to other environments, right? And she also shared with us on industrialization, shared with us about AI and how attackers are taking advantage of it. I'm sure even personally, a lot of us have seen this thing happen more and more in recent times. And the same way attackers are taking advantage of it is also the same way from the security point of view. There's a lot of AI solutions today that can be deployed in your environment and just keeps you ahead of the game. And Bolaba also went ahead to share with us about number one, the starting point, which is after all that we've heard today, all that has been said, where do I start from or what do I do next? And the starting point is us even or you allowing experts understand your environment, understand what is going on, get into your space and, being able to do a proper diagnostic of the status of your security posture today. And the beautiful thing is that because of the session we're having today, we've made it complimentary for everybody on the call. So the assessment is a complimentary service that we're going to be offering to everybody on the call today. So take advantage of it. Like, to be honest, there's absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain. So we have our experts here, we have our technical people here, and the support guys also on the call to take your details if you want to have it today we're ready. If you want to, schedule another time, we're also available to have that session. And number two, he mentioned something very critical, which is we build and grow with you. So, irrespective of the level where you are, irrespective of the size of the organization, we're here to work with you. And to be honest, if you listen carefully to our speakers, you will tell that they are truly interested in us building more secure organizations in Nigeria and across Africa. Like, this is actually a passion that the organization and the individuals here have shown, right? Where we're actually, it's not just about, oh, we want to, provide a service. No, it's you first. You are the one that has everything to benefit from this. So, as he has shared, no matter the level where you are, no matter the status of your organization, even if you don't know if there's a problem or not, we're ready to work with you and we would grow with you. We've done that in the past and we're still doing that today, where we just take it from your level. And then the last thing I want you to leave today's session with is that everything that we do is what? Number one, advisory led. So it is first advisory, and then secondly, implementation backed, meaning once we're able to advise you on this is what the situation is, then we're ready to also go ahead and implement these solutions in your environment and size to your stage. So we would always be able to attend to you and deliver these services irrespective of the stage where you are. So again, the poll is still open. I would still encourage a lot of us to respond to the poll. Let's know what you are doing today. You need to take a decision based on all that you've heard. And I'm encouraging you to take advantage of the complimentary assessment session that we have. You'll be able to ask deeper questions. You'll be able to ask more specific questions that are, that are more aligned, to your environment, or you're able to share with us more openly what you're dealing with and the concerns you may have. So, Confidence, before we let you go, we're going to allow you share. I'll not say share your last words. Share some final thoughts with our attendees today. Something that you want them to take away from this session, and that would benefit them going forward. Thank you. Gbolabo, immediately after Confidence, we would like you to come up and also share a few words before we round up.
Thank you so much. I'm hoping you can still hear me. Yes, okay, great. So I just want to close out by saying taking action today, just one, towards ensuring that you're able to improve your visibility of your environment as to security. Is something that I really want to encourage you to do today. That visibility would be what really does make a difference. So yes, please go ahead and ensure you're taking at least one action today to maximize, for example, the free service that's been offered, to even get you to understand where you are in terms of what risks are specific to you and your organization by a company that actually really cares to support you, and ensure that the tools, the services and advice that you're getting is really just tied to your growth stage right now. So I would really advise that you take one step, if it's just the only thing you do today.
Thank you.
Confidence. So I think I would close by using something on my slides to say that an assessment isn't a decision to buy anything. It's just the fastest way for you to stop guessing. Knowing your risk is very critical. Knowing it is probably, I won't say half solved, but at least you are a quarter into it to the next stage. So I would recommend that get that free security readiness assessment done, get involved. Of course, we're excited if you're interested to subscribing to any of the services and want to leverage the free VCSOs, 1 month free VCSO service too, that is also very welcome. But do the free security readiness assessment. Know where your risks lie, know your current security posture, and then from there be able to make the right decisions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Please, can you go back to that slide that shows the offer that we're giving out today? We have 5 minutes before we round up the session. Thank you. So, for everyone here today, I just want to reiterate this so you understand what you have on the table. Number one, you have a free security readiness assessment, which we've all spoken extensively on. And then number two, you have a 1 month free VCISO service. Let me just break it down a little bit so you get it. A VCISO is a virtual CISO, meaning that you would have the full complement of a CISO in this service. So it's as employing somebody to come into your organization and work as your chief information security officer, right? And we're giving that for you free. So within 1 month, there's a lot that can happen. Like, trust me, there's a lot that will be discovered. There's a lot that will be shared. There's a lot of advisory services that you will get from us. And I'm encouraging you once again to make sure you take advantage of this one-time offer. Take advantage of it. Sign up, reach out to us, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. And then lastly, before I round up, just because we had Confidence here today, again, we're very grateful for your time. We know how busy your schedule can be, so we're happy that this is something we've looked forward to for a very long time. And having Confidence here, we're not just going to let her go. So there's also something that we're introducing after today's session, and that is a special offer that you would get if you're going to be subscribing for any of our services. And because you heard about it at this session, all we need you to give is a code. Once we get this code, CONSB26, it's going to be on the chat box. So once you give us that code, we would know that you are subscribing from our services because of today's session, and you will definitely get a very special discount for whatever it is that you're subscribing for. So we're looking forward to seeing people. Confidence, so I've used your name for code. So I'm looking forward to of you guys taking advantage of it. And we're doing all of this just to let you know that we're truly interested in seeing more businesses secure. We're not excited, when people get breached. We're not excited when we see things that could have been avoided, things that funds that have gone missing that could have been used for other things like confidence shared. We're not happy when we see things like that, and that's why we're making the entry level and the entry barrier as low as possible. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's session. Thank you, Bo. Thank you, Confidence. Thank you to all our admin guys at the back of the scene making it happen, and to all our wonderful attendees. Everybody that started this session has stayed till the very end, and we're really grateful for the time you spent with us. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Gbolabo. Oh dear. Thanks, guys.
Well, we can't wait for everybody to go.